Two of the MENA ICT Forum 2016. Yesterday we had quite an eventful digital day, and again, if you kind of like what happened yesterday, that gave you some inspiration. I'm sure you're going to enjoy what we have today. Again, if you are on Twitter, on social media, please, that hashtag, very important indeed, MENA ICT 2016, and hopefully we can get trending as much as possible. Yesterday, around the world yesterday, big news. There was big news, wasn't there? Quite a big news indeed. New American president. Every single country in the world, that was trending worldwide. That was number one. In Jordan, it was number two. Because number one was actually the MENA ICT 2016 hashtag. We were actually, that's right, clap for yourselves. Because it is, yeah, you guys were actually trending in Jordan. Hopefully, let's keep it going. And again, if someone just has, anybody at all that's maybe not connected with the event, they just have to see that tweet, and that perhaps will start a conversation somewhere and move this event in the right direction. Okay, to kick off the morning, and we've got something quite special here as well to wake us all up. Also, if you think everything that you've learnt about innovation in the last 5 years, okay, it's actually turned on its head. The gentleman that's going to tell you a lot more about that and explain exactly what I'm talking about is actually an entrepreneur, an author, consultant, and also a former Green Beret, would you believe it? Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the co-founder of Maker Partners, Mr. Mark Hatch.
So I firmly believe that everything we knew about innovation has fundamentally changed in the last 5 years. I'm going to walk through that in a little bit. So as a former Green Beret, one of the things I really enjoyed most about my time there was blowing things up. So we learned how to run revolutions and how to drive a revolution, and I believe we are in the middle of the most interesting revolution in all of human history. This revolution is going to make the Renaissance and the Gutenberg and everything else that we've been through look like child's play. Again, if you thought the last 5 to 10 years was interesting, the next 5 to 10 are going to be even more interesting. So as it relates to blowing things up, I'm going to ask the audience to say boom on occasion, just to keep our blood flowing. And there are going to be some really interesting things that I'm going to show you towards the end of the conversation that will, I hope, surprise you, and you're going to want to participate. So just to practice, I want you to say boom on 3. 1, 2, 3. Boom! Boom. Yes, baby. All right, let's do it again. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Boom. All right, let's get started. So I'm going to talk about a few things. This is a fairly deep topic. I've got 30 minutes, and so we're going to move through it very quickly. I'm going to talk about makerspaces, exponential technology trends, and the early impact that this combination of trends has had already in the US and other parts of the world. I'm going to start with makerspaces. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tech Shop. I recently left to help actually drive the revolution harder. And a tech shop is 20,000 square feet of every tool you need to make anything on the planet. Every tool you need to make anything on the planet. We have 12 of them around the globe. We opened our first one in the Middle East in Abu Dhabi last summer. It's 15,000 square feet. It's $150 a month. What that means is for the cost of a Starbucks addiction, anybody can have access to the same tools that GE and Ford and other large industrial companies use to create prototypes and to build their business. We have never lived in an era where the average consumer had access to these tools. That just happened in the last 8 years. And as a result, some amazing things have been happening. So we do corporate events. We have a known good expansion process and global reach. Our corporate events are a lot of fun. Lasers and beer, welding and wine, water jet and whiskey, power tools and alcohol. What could possibly go wrong? 1, 2, 3, boom! Yeah, we don't let that happen. Next slide. There we go. So we have machine tools. So standard industrial lathes. We let people come in off the street and after 2 or 3 hours learning how to use these tools, use our tools. An important component in that are computers. If you learn how to use the software that drives these tools, you can now produce things in plastic, metal, wood, electronics, and textiles. You can make just about anything after learning how to use just a couple of simple software tools. The laser cutter is an incredibly powerful tool. We have people that have accidentally launched businesses after one class session on the laser cutter. Of course, we teach welding classes, we have 3D printers, we have a water jet. I love this thing. This thing will cut through 5 inches thick of anything on the planet. We'll teach you how to use it in 2 hours. 2 hours, you download a 2-dimensional file off the internet and you can cut things out of concrete, granite, titanium, cows, chickens, you name it, this thing cuts it. And it cuts it like butter. It's a truly remarkable tool. That was cut on. It has a 1/1000th of a kerf over a 5-inch throw. It'll cut absolutely anything. Complete woodworking lab, complete textiles lab. We've had 5 companies launch, textile fashion companies. And plastic, that's an injection molding machine. Most importantly, what happens when you open one of these spaces is we attract the most creative people within the city to come in and hang out on a daily basis. That is the true magic. The tools are the honey that attracts the bees. And the real key is how do you get university professors, venture capitalists, startups, junior high kids, all hanging out together in one space, working on projects that they love. The way you do that is you build a 20,000 square foot space, you outfit it with 15 full-time employees, and you give them every tool they need to make anything on the planet. This isn't just a hardware accelerator. This is for artists. This is for kids that are trying to learn. This is for moms who are launching little craft businesses just trying to supplement a little bit of income and to reposition themselves within society. And building that community is by far the most important thing. And to do that, you need the space. And we're making progress. The President of the United States came and visited us in Pittsburgh a couple of years ago. He's had 3 maker fairs on site at the White House in the last few years. It's become an important movement in the United States and growing around the world. So park that. The tools of the Industrial Revolution are now available to you for the cost of a Starbucks addiction. The next question is, okay, but what is the environment within which we're dropping this? And so there are 6 exponential technology fields. This comes out of the Singularity University folks, Peter Diamandis and Ray Kurzweil. I'm an adjunct faculty at Singularity University. These things are changing at increasingly exponential rates. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but this is very core. Biotech and bioinformatics, energy and environmental systems, networks and computing systems, AI and robots, medical and neuroscience and nanotechnology. These things are rapidly changing. I would encourage you to start holding this forum once every year and then once every 6 months, because I'm sorry, if you wait another 2 years, everything that you've learned is going to fundamentally change in these fields in the next 2 years. You've got to be plugged into the innovation ecosystem knowledge around the globe, and waiting every 2 years to have that conversation is a little bit too long. So these are the exponential fields, but let me keep going. Here's what's really changed. We can now do research and prototyping very inexpensively. Our customers tell us that they save 98% of their development costs by doing it themselves. What that means is what used to take $1 million from a venture capitalist now takes $10,000 from family and friends to launch a business. Accelerators. There are hardware accelerators now. Unfortunately, there are only about 13 of them around the world. This is a huge opportunity. You could open one of the very first hardware accelerators in all of the Middle East and North Africa, and you could do it in the next 9 months. Finance has changed, manufacturing has changed, marketing has changed, and sales has changed. What is left when you're trying to launch a business? Let me get into this. So we've helped to open 2 locations around the globe. This is an innovation center in St. Louis, Washington University, Purina, Monsanto, and others helped to fund that one. Unternehmertum in Munich was funded partially by BMW and by the university. Again, on the ground floor, you've got 20,000 square feet, access to every tool that you need. On the next floor is typically a hardware accelerator, software accelerator, and on the top floor is space for people to be able to work and collaborate. So that's an incubators, innovation centers, and maker spaces and fab labs. There's a fab lab here on campus, is my understanding. These are great educational platforms, and they are on-ramps to this upcoming innovation revolution. We now have accelerators. I mentioned there are only about 13 of them around the world. 3 of them launched next to our San Francisco location a few years ago. So you've got Alpha Gear, you've got Lemnos. What's really interesting is Flex, and where's the other one? I don't see it there. Flextronics. So this is the second largest integrated contract manufacturer on the planet, and they have a hardware accelerator embedded in their startup ecosystem. So if you have a great idea, they have this thing called Sketch to Scale. You can come to them, and they will take it from Sketch and run it through their professional research and development arm, their professional manufacturing, and they will actually help you put it on the shelf. You can go from having an idea to having something on Walmart's shelves in 12 months. That has never existed in all of human history. You've never been able to walk into a facility, say, here's my idea, and it's going to be on the Walmart shelf in 12 months, unless you were a GE or unless you were a Sony or an Apple. Now this is available to anybody with a great idea. 1, 2, 3, boom. So we also have finance, right? Self-funding, Kickstarters, AngelList, the Jobs Act. These have fundamentally changed, at least in the United States, particularly the Jobs Act. We've raised $5 million in $25,000 increments from people who care about the maker movement across the United States. We've had the most recent Kickstarter was a laser cutter. They called it a laser printer. It was a $30 million fundraising. And Flex is now their manufacturing partner, and they're actually already shipping. This thing is only about 18 months old from concept to delivery. We have manufacturing. So you can do manufacturing in maker spaces. You can do it in JBuild. You can do it in Dragon. You can do it in China. You can do short runs in your own maker spaces. You've also got marketing now. Again, this has fundamentally changed. You used to have to be able to take advertising out. You had to do radio. You had to go to trade shows. No more. You could now do Google, Facebook, Instagram. You do key influencers. You get Robert Scoble to tweet you. You get some other folks to tweet you. And all of a sudden, you now have access to markets that you've never had before. Talk about cheap. This stuff is free. You impact your network, you get them to impact their network, and you can now take your products out to the entire region or across the entire globe for free. And then, of course, we've got sales, and this has fundamentally changed as well. Amazon, Etsy, eBay, Grommet, actually direct in retail. When I grew up, we had to go through a buyer at a local retailer, and trying to get a startup in front of a buyer at the time was next to impossible. Now you can take your products direct. And in fact, Walmart and Brookstone and others realize that they are so far behind, they have teams that are focused on trying to find the next big thing. It's easier now to get distribution than we have ever seen, again, in all of human history. And you don't even have to do that. You can go direct thanks to the web. You can go on Etsy or Grommet. You can do all kinds of different things. So what did I just cover? Like in the last 5 years, most of this stuff didn't exist. We now have these 6 exponential fields. We have access to manufacturing capacity. We got research, accelerators, finance, manufacturing, marketing, and sales for almost nothing. A 98% reduction in the cost of taking a company into the market. And you go, right, Mark, that's a bunch of theory. That's very interesting. Now let's get real. This is my personal experience. These are companies that I know. These are people that I know personally over the last about 6 years. There's a nice little slide. Let's get into the first one. That's Ken Hawthorne. That is the world's fastest electric motorcycle. It did 218 miles an hour on the Bonneville Salt Flats 2 years ago. It won Pikes Peak this last year, which is the second oldest race in the United States. It not only beat all the other electric motorcycles, it destroyed the entire motorcycle field. The Italian Ducati Monster came in second place 20 seconds after this motorcycle came across the finish line. When was the last time you ever heard of a professional race where the second place finisher came in after the first guy had a massage and a beer? Like this guy finished so early, it was stunning. The entire thing was built from the ground up in a makerspace in our tech shop in Menlo Park. The carbon fiber fairing, the aluminum frame, the engine. You can't go out and buy an electric superbike engine. You have to build it yourself. The transmission, all of the electronics, all of the wiring, the seat. Because if you had to go to an upholsterer, it might have taken 2 or 3 weeks to get that stupid seat back. And instead, you just go into the textiles room and build the seat in the same day. You can collapse development times by 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. I can talk about GE, how they've shifted one of their manufacturing ideation processes from a 18-month to 3-year process and $200 million to a 6-month process and a few $1 million. This stuff is real. It's happening now. Britt Morin came in. She didn't know how to make anything. She then launched a lifestyle company called Brit & Co. She just raised $26 million in her Series B. He just launched her products across all of the Target stores in the US. Hallmark is now one of her partners. She's on television on the Today Show about 3 times a month. When she came in, she literally didn't know how to make anything. She took about 30 classes over about a 4-month period, then launched her company, and now she's worth tens of millions of dollars just on the products that she's working on. David came in and said, I don't know how to make anything either, but I want to learn. So he took a bunch of our classes and eventually launched a robot company. This guy went from not knowing how to make anything, and 9 months later, he owns an underwater robot company. 1, 2, 3, boom. Max came in and said, like, I want to own a lamp company. This is one of the things that's interesting. Like, I know he's 26, 28 years old. There is no venture capitalist or angel group on the planet that would have funded this. So this is interesting. We now live in an era where you can launch lifestyle businesses. You do not have to talk to anybody about an exit. Mom doesn't want an exit. She just wants to make a little money to help to get the kids into some clothing or to get a present for birthdays. These platforms don't require that you are trying to get to a unicorn status. There's actually more money below the surface than there is above the surface for that. Max launched his company. He eventually ended up on Shark Tank, which is where you stand in front of 5 guys. And they bid him, all 5 of them bid him. He went and said, my company's worth $3 million. I need $300,000 to be able to pay for my inventory. He was given a $6 million valuation, $300,000 in equity, and an unlimited line of credit to handle his inventory. 1, 2, 3, boom. I mentioned about robots, so this is crazy. This is a robot that will produce 600 hamburgers an hour. This is probably going to eliminate 600,000 jobs in the United States alone. It was built initially at CMU, and then they moved to the Bay Area to actually develop it. It's called Momentum Machines. Look them up. This is the robotics part of the curve. Then these guys they also came out of CMU. This is a sandwich making machine. This thing is crazy. It looks like some kind of wild contraption where you've got chicken and beef and peanut butter and jelly and mayonnaise and you name it. And this thing starts out with the bread on one end and out comes a sandwich on the other. This will probably eliminate about 300,000 jobs in the United States. Patrick came in and asked, what classes do I need to take to build an iPad case out of bamboo and bookbinding? He took 3 classes in 1 week, launched a company, and did $1 million in sales in the first quarter. He didn't know how to use the tools, learned what he needed, launched his company, and closed $1 million in the first quarter. He did $4 million in the first year, $10 million in the second, $50 million in the third. We think he's doing over $100 million a year now. He's got a manufacturing facility inside of San Francisco. This is like an urban regrowth and an urban renewal opportunity. You can learn what you need in weeks or months to be able to start a company. And actually, the President of the United States is his lead user. Somebody bought it for him early. It was really quite remarkable. But let me make a note here. None of the things I've just showed you have changed the world. One might think that if you gave the tools of the Industrial Revolution to the middle class for the first time in human history, they might change the world. And in fact, they have. Square came out of our Menlo location. What people don't know about this story is that Jack Dorsey and James McKelvey were turned down the first time that they went and talked to ostensibly the smartest investors on the planet. That's right, they went in and talked to the 10 top guys in the Silicon Valley, said, I've got this idea, and they were turned down flat. Namely because Jack was a coder and James was a glass blower from St. Louis. What does a glass blower from St. Louis know about credit cards? Well, it turns out he was turned down. His bank told him that he couldn't take American Express cards from his customers. And I'm sorry, but we do not live in an era where your bank gets to tell you what form of payment your customers want to pay you in. And one of the reasons is because he got fed up with it, went to the Silicon Valley and pitched his idea. More importantly, he then came to our location, learned how to use the tools, learned the basic electronics, leveraged the community, and built the prototype that got them their $10 million in their seed. And here's what I really love about it. They went back to these guys, they didn't do a PowerPoint. They just walked in with their phone and the dongle and said, give me your credit card. Right? So the guys whipped out their black American Express card, ran it through, put in $50. They took $50 off each of the top 10 VCs. And didn't give the money back. I love that. 1, 2, 3, boom. First time I've ever heard of a startup charging a VC for a meeting. MakerBot came out of our movement. That's Brie Pettis. It was a $600 million exit. 5 years before his exit, he was a junior high art teacher. We live in an era where if you're a junior high art teacher, You can move to a major city. You can get access to the facilities that you need, and you can change the world. He commercialized the idea of consumer-grade 3D printers, and he was an art teacher. The cognitive surplus that we have in our cities around the globe, the capacity of the human mind, is the largest untapped resource on the planet. How do we tap into it? And the way we do that is we give them facilities and we give them education, we give them training, we give them just a little bit of a push, and they will do remarkable things, things like Brie Pettis did. And these are 3 other technologies I won't go into that have also changed the world in their own right. This one is my favorite. It's a portable incubation blanket that Jane Chen came up with. This thing has saved 250,000 babies so far. What happens when you give the tools of the Industrial Revolution to the middle class and you give them a little bit of support that they need? They change the world. 1, 2, 3, boom. So here's the impact in the Bay Area. $6 billion in shareholder value have been created from the 3 locations that ran us about $30 million. 2,000 jobs, $200 million in annual salaries. The state of California makes 10% of that on an annual basis. So the state of California is making more money annually just on the income than it cost us to open 2 of our locations. And when that $6 billion is turned over in shareholder value, that means the state is going to pick up another $600 million. Our best estimate is the state of California is going to pick up between $800 and $1.2 billion from a $30 million investment. And this actually shouldn't surprise us, because this platform and the era that we're living in is unique to human history. We've never had access to this kind of powerful tools. We've never had access to the software that you can learn how to use in a couple of weeks that will enable you to produce things in steel, in plastic, in textiles, in electronics. But now we do. So my focus, we've got the exponential tech I talked about, you've got maker spaces, and you've got hardware. This is an enormous opportunity. I love software, and Andreessen says software is eating the world, but the world is made up of physical things. It's called cyber-physical. And so it's coming into the physical realm, and what's fascinating is we don't need a lot of knowledge to have an incredible amount of impact in the physical world. We just need access to the platforms. So what am I doing? I am consulting and speaking on this particular topic. I'm doing research on this topic because there's a dearth of information, quantitative information related to it. And I've started a venture capital fund because I'm actually trying to put money into these startups that are doing absolutely amazing things. So welcome to the innovation revolution. I hope you join me. 1, 2, 3, boom.
Thank you so much. In fact, just before you go, perhaps, I'm sure there are perhaps people in the room that maybe will like to pose a question of something that they've heard from Mark this morning. Any questions, perhaps?
Hi, thanks. That was a great talk. So I'm wondering about regulation and how it affects your ability to get the machines into the different places that you want to operate in. Specifically in the region, you mentioned you opened up in Abu Dhabi. I know some other maker spaces have had trouble getting 3D printers in, and just wondered about your experience.
So the answer is you start at the top. So you come in at a very senior governmental level and you get them to help bust open the doors. So the maker movement is very much a ground up kind of a phenomenon. And as a result, that creates a lot of issues in that often the spaces are too small to drive economic development. They have all kinds of regulation that they have to deal with. It may be impossible to get insurance, which in the United States is a really big deal. And so as part of the objective, what you want to do is you want to create an entire ecosystem that supports the large centers as well as the maker spaces around and paves the way so that they don't have these kinds of issues. Because we need a maker space, maybe a small one, in every junior high school, every university should have a major one, and every city should have a large one downtown where the people who aren't plugged into those other things have an opportunity to gather and change their community. Great question.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for a great presentation. You shocked us and all us more than Trump's winning. My colleague and I were talking about how can we get something of this magnitude, this great venture started in Jordan, knowing that we do have I don't know if you've seen them, the innovation centers. But this is completely different. We're talking about vocational innovation, something completely wild and crazy. How do you think a country like Jordan should start with something like that?
I think you can take some of the existing resources and just tweak them a little bit. The key piece to this is open access, and then the educational level to teach people how to use it. You already have maker spaces in Jordan. There's already a small maker movement. You know, like we need to tap into that. The next thing is we've got to free up capital. And like I mentioned, every major educational institution, if they want to be competitive globally, is going to have to put in a 10 to 20 to 30,000 square foot innovation center. This world is changing, and without it, your education isn't going to be as valuable. Since that money is already going to be spent, the trick is to make sure that you work it so that it has the open access components to it. Like that's what I believe. Yeah.
Just a comment before I pass it to my colleague, actually, for next question. On regulation, the government just decided yesterday to allow all 3D printers to get in town without any trouble and treat it as computers. So they left all regulations that were put on it yesterday.
That's good, but we also need CNC mills, which you typically have to buy from outside of the region, and a 35% tariff on that will reduce the ability to have a bunch of them. So there are a bunch of technologies that need to be able to be positioned, and it's not always easy. It took us 3 months to sort some of the stuff out in Abu Dhabi.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, put your hands together for Mark Hatch. So again, remember everything that you see on stage, we're recording everything right now. You're recording me right now. You're recording me as well. And pretty much everybody here on stage also. And at some stage, we'll kind of collect all that information together and all that material and content and try to get it online. So again, you can kind of see and hear again what you heard while you were experiencing this conference right here in this auditorium. And I'm sure most of the speakers here, most of them, nearly all of them are actually on social as well, so you can reach out to Mark and all the other speakers as well on social. But listen, as you're here, just walk up to them and chat to them here. And then you actually be face-to-face with them as well. Okay, we're going to move on now to our first panel discussion of the morning, onto a topic which actually is one of the very few sectors that have really embraced the technology revolution, and that is actually healthcare. So technology, we're going to listen to how technology is really improving the quality of health. So I will now introduce to you the panelists who will come on stage right now. So first of all, the founder and CEO of Nabed.net, Mr. Adnan Abu Shahra. Analyst from CB Insights, Mr. William Altman. We also have the CEO of EHS, Mr. Feras Kamal. From IBM, we have Ms. Lina Shadid, and also CEO and co-founder of Visita, Mr. Ahmed Badir. And our moderator, again, that's going to kind of take control of this and make sense of everything that we hear. Please put your hands together for the CEO of Jordan Air Ambulance Center, Mr. Rami Adwan.
This is yours. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, yeah, I was hoping to get one of these, so I mean, that's basically waited for me. So let's restart again. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And I have to say that, one always wonders, what is the best session to attend? Would that be the morning one or the afternoon one or the one after lunch? But obviously, we're gaining the benefit of starting early in the day. Everybody's had their coffee. So thank you all for being here. And I hope that, we will earn, the worth of your presence. Today, the topic is about healthcare IT. And it's really a landscape of innovation, entrepreneurship, and a lot of opportunity. It has witnessed a major revolution of its own, the healthcare IT sector. If we want to look at the governmental landscape, mega projects have been launched across the Middle East, whether we're talking about Jordan, which has the Hakim program to automate all public sector hospitals, Saudi Arabia with major projects, or we're talking about Dubai, the Dubai Health Authority, and the connectedness of all the hospitals together, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, etc. But not only at the governmental level, equally at the entrepreneurial level, there's been a revolution happening silently on its own. A huge amount of investment has been taking place, leveraging the mobility, the connectedness, the cloud, you name it. Today, whether we are talking about the doctors, the patients, researchers, whoever, everybody is using the information out there and that is being availed to people to benefit from technology in the field of healthcare. The drivers for investment in healthcare probably vary. If we are talking about the government side, there's been an increase in the prices and the costs of healthcare administered to people, coupled with the expansion and the increase of populations, the longer lives. If we are talking about patients or the people who should receive the treatment, they have a faster pace of life. Today, the World Bank estimates that by 2030, 85% of the deaths will be caused by NCDs. Those are non-communicable diseases that are basically non-infectious diseases, like the elevated cholesterol levels, diabetes, hypertension, and so on. So that places on governments a big role to pursue a preventive medicine approach. But equally as much, if we're talking about the individuals, the faster pace of life, they just want a new dynamic. They would like to get the answers straight at the fingertips without having to go to the extensive process of seeing doctors. So in this vibrant landscape, and before taking too much of everybody's time, let me get to the introductions. We are very privileged to have a very distinguished panel with us today. So let me start by introducing them one by one. We are privileged to have Adnan Abu Sharar. Adnan founded Nabd in 2011. This is a patient engagement portal that aims to provide proactive medical education to patients. William Altman, he's flown in from New York. Of course, he has spent 2 years in Jordan, during which he has invested in a huge amount of research, and he basically surveyed the entire entrepreneurial landscape in the healthcare sector. Ahmed Badr, the COO and co-founder of Visita.com. This is a company started in Egypt, basically, and it provides a platform for doctors and patients to connect together, and he will be telling us more about it. Firas Kamal, co-founder and CEO of EHS. EHS, Hakim, is the company that is automating the public sector hospitals by implementing the National eHealth Program. Firas has many years of experience. I mean, he's a previous military man and a retired one now, but he's basically been the co-founder of the program at the start. Lina Shadid, from IBM, basically, you are the healthcare sector lead in IBM in the Middle East, and you've had an experience that basically, you're the managing director today. Yes. You've traveled across the region, and you are serving a lot of mega projects and mega clients in the region. So without further ado, let me just get to this straight discussion, and I'm going to start not from you, Adnan, but rather from William.
Not a problem.
William, you've spent some time here, and you've done a great amount of research in the field of healthcare IT startups. Now, that's not received probably a lot of attention from, the public and the media. Could you just tell us what's happening there?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Rami. So, like Rami mentioned, I conducted research in the Middle East, North Africa on behalf of WAMDA, the region's entrepreneurship accelerator, and General Electric Corporation. And what we did was we went to every country in MENA, we found all the startups innovating in healthcare, and we interviewed them. Now, I'll start globally. I have a few slides. They may pop up, but I'll just continue on. What we see globally...
I'll just take a moment. The gentleman managing the PowerPoints, if we can just pop the 3 slides. I don't know who is. You can continue. Well, they're here.
Okay, so first off, I'll start by saying I have very few opinions about healthcare, but what I do have is access to the world's largest data set on venture capital. So what we see globally, what's happening is year over year annually, billions of dollars are being invested in these companies. It's not a matter of if this will transform healthcare, it's simply a matter of how. And what we also see is that the average deal size, the average venture capital deal size to these companies is rising year over year. What's interesting about this slide is the spread between the median and the average is quite large, indicating that there's quite a big spread between the investment size in these deals. You see many startups getting 10K seed funding, and there are even startups getting $100 million mega deals in this space. Now, if we look at the share of those deals, the majority of them are in the seed and Series A rounds, indicating that there's quite a bit of innovation taking place. These are not growth equity rounds to companies that are established and needing to scale. That's quite interesting, especially for the MENA region. Now, if you look at the share of these seed and Series A deals over time globally, including in MENA, you can see actually that the seed deals are going down and Series A deals are relatively stagnant. Now, what that means is that innovation is taking place, but it's not taking place at the same rate. We're seeing investors that are pouring money into this space are looking at startups and they're thinking, okay, there aren't too many new ideas, but we know this is going to happen. We know it's a space that requires innovation, so they're still putting money in. Now, that brings me to my point about the Middle East, North Africa, and what's happening here now. We're seeing startups in the region innovating across the healthcare value chain, across the continuum of care, from preventative care, which happens before complications occur. Now, this is one of the hardest spaces in healthcare to innovate in, precisely because it's very difficult to monetize. Now, people tend to not really care about their health until something goes wrong, and then they're willing to pay to fix it. Startups are still doing this by giving people access to digital Arabic content, basically accurate medical intelligence online that is localized. The other way that they're doing this is connecting patients and doctors through portals. At least 2 startups in every MENA country are doing this, and Jordan has some of the leading startups as well. The next space that we're seeing innovation would be acute care, what's happening inside of the hospital. This is an incredibly difficult space for a startup to infiltrate, precisely because you need an inordinate amount of data and tests to prove that your ideas are going to work. I mean, people's lives are at stake. Really, there's no industry on the planet that requires more research and development than healthcare, except maybe space travel. The next space that we're seeing entrepreneurs in the region innovate would be in the managed care. This would be what happens after treatment. Once you've figured out that you have something wrong, you've received treatment, how do you stay better? How do you stay healthy? This is also a difficult space to innovate in because you're really seeing the impacts of human behavior. And we know whether it's getting people to take their medications or how they're going to vote, human behavior is highly unpredictable. So the next space that we're seeing entrepreneurs innovate in would be paying for care, insurance. And we're not seeing too much of activity in this space in MENA, but in the UAE, there are a few startups that are offering online platforms for people to get access to personalized healthcare plans for them. So that's sort of a broad overview of the different areas of innovation where we're seeing startups. 2 common big themes that we're seeing amongst the successful startups in the space in the Middle East, North Africa, first off is access to capital to conduct research and development. This is a huge deal in healthcare. The capital is simply not there. Investors do not have the patience to fund tests. They want to fund proven ideas. So entrepreneurs are finding it very difficult. I'll say one last thing. The next is partnerships. Startups in this space cannot be 2 guys in a room on a laptop that are going to create an innovation that's going to change healthcare. You have to partner from within the system with existing legacy organizations and use those relationships to innovate. So thank you. Sorry for going a little over.
Not at all, thank you. I actually just wanted to check on one point with you. I mean, from the startups that you have scanned, how many of them are positioned to actually take on the globe, i.e. they are not strictly local or regional?
Sure. So if if you look at the research that we've done, there's about 40% of the startups in our sample of nearly 100 startups in the region. They actually have global solutions that are either geared towards multiple languages, cultures, religions, that can really be applicable everywhere, and also solutions that hit on problems that are impacting every healthcare value chain across the globe, whether it's the rising cost of healthcare, whether it's making healthcare more personalized for individuals, or whether it's dealing with regulation. Actually, some startups are there. So the majority are still doing localized solutions, but there's quite a few who are global.
Thank you. I'll move from this particular point because you mentioned that there is a lot of, the thrust of the startups are basically in the pre-hospital care area, which is the information and the interaction at that level. And we say that prevention is better than cure. From that perspective, I think I'll move to Adnan. Adnan, you had identified a niche there for the education. Obviously, whichever medical statistics we look at, we find that our region suffers from, possibly lack of awareness in the fields of medical knowledge related to NCDs, and that comes coupled with a very high, spread of those diseases in our region. Now, you've identified a niche whereby you wanted to provide targeted medical information and education to patients and engage them at that level. Would you kindly tell us, what did you do exactly with NUBD, and how did you find the market receptiveness to it?
So, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay, good. So it's been actually a long journey. We started 2011. I would like just to kind of step aside in that and mention, in the future, I hope we can have more of our vertical or industry partners like hospitals to participate in an event like that, as also they are part of the problem, and we need to engage with them to be part of the solution as well.
That's going to Nidal El-Bitar, who's currently engaged with tweeting definitely about the session, nothing else, of course.
Right. So we came to realities, and we realized that in the Arab world, there is a lot of hospitals are spending millions and millions of dollars on equipments, but they have no plans for any kind of engagement with patients before and after being released from the hospital. And that's one. The second challenging part also, we found that there is almost zero Arabic content that is evidence-based and comes from credible sources. So we truly started to tap into those kind of arenas, and I advise anyone who has in mind to start a business of some sort or idea with the medical vertical, I truly advise to find a hospital as a partner and approach them in the most modest way, saying I would like to build my business plan in partnership with you, so you can at least really do the baby steps. Now, so the mindset basically with a lot of the healthcare institutes is basically it's based on a pure surgical relationship. So once you are released from the hospital, you are off on your own. And we're not talking about, we're addressing a much bigger segment in our society, middle class and lower. So this is where the idea of NUBD really started to formulate. Our objective is to actually make education and prevention available from the level of a taxi driver all the way to the CEO of a company. And we have invested a lot in multiple creative tools and ways to deliver that. Starting with that actually was, we went down as far as physical box that you can pick up in a library, in a pharmacy. So you can walk in a pharmacy, you can say post-maternity, hip replacement, open heart surgery. You can get that box, take it home, and it has a series of videos that would meticulously walk you through every step that you need to do. It's like a journey for an entire year. So this is on a lot of the chronic diseases. However, we've also started to really heavily look at the prevention aspect of it. So to kind of shorten the answer here, there is a huge gap between what the healthcare industry are doing and the reach out to the patients. And we're trying to fill out that gap. And hopefully, of course, we see the medical community as being the obstacle in many ways rather than a solution. Because if you look at the chain, you will see a lot of entrepreneurs, you'll see a lot of ideas, and the medical community is not being able to actually play a role in that.
Adnan, I want to actually pick on a point here. You mentioned about putting those shrink-wrap packages for information at pharmacies.
Right.
Now, I mean, in this day and age, I'm sure that some people here would ask themselves, I mean, do we really need those boxes shrink-wrapped at pharmacies? I mean, ideally, we would want everything to be delivered online or through SMS,
Right.
whichever automated media. Was that the result of poor intellectual property protection, or because of what you perceive to be unawareness on the patient side and not readiness to receive this information online? Which was the bigger driver?
So the first, the objective here is first to bypass the doctor, because the doctor is being very reactive into taking a role in pushing education and prevention content to the patient. This is one. Two, there is a reality about our community. The credit card penetration is less than 10% on average in the Arab world. So, and out of the 10%, 90% are too scared to use their credit cards. So we're still a consumer retail community, whether we like to admit to that or not. And the bigger class segment in our society falls into that category.
Well, that's fine. I mean, you know, we're not in the business of pretending that everybody buys online.
Right,
I mean,
right.
if you've identified that as being a feasible channel, it's your business.
Right. So our objective here was about reachability. So you should have access to patient education and prevention, whether in pharmacies, whether by your doctor or through your hospital, even at the company you work for, even maybe your insurance company. This is our objective, to make this available in a scalable manner.
Excellent. I'll take a step from this point and pick on a sentence you said, bypass the doctor. Well, not to bypass the doctor, but to bypass the traditional way of accessing the doctor,
Absolutely.
which is to go to clinic.
Right.
And I want to recognize here a Jordanian success story, which is altibbi.com. I know Jalil wanted to be here, but he had to rush off. Altibbi.com basically started providing medical information, and it was all about connecting doctors with patients. What started as a very small portal now has about 75, approaching 90 million hits a year, 70% of which are actually unique. And he has really persevered in his initiative, because at the beginning, while he provided a lot of content and a lot of interaction on free basis between doctors and patients, he has finally moved to the paradigm of actually offering the premium services that are generating money. One of the biggest challenges for startups in the healthcare has been, there's so much for free out there. How do you monetize? But equally on redefining the relationship between the doctor and the patient, and in the private sector field, not the governmental, which we'll get to in a minute, Ahmed, Visita, basically you wanted to empower doctors with better tools so that they can capture the information from their patients and build a more personalized relationship and a more enduring relationship. And I know that at some point your colleague Amir came to Jordan, was hoping to start in Jordan, but eventually you guys decided to stay your grounds and start in Egypt. We would have been very lucky if you did. Today you have over 3,000 doctors, about 1 million patients using your portal. Tell us about your experience, and what have you found to be the driving forces that are engaging patients in your experience?
Okay, so let me start by giving a very quick brief on Visita. Visita started as a pure clinic management system, which is basically empowering doctors to automate their clinics through schedules and medical records and so on. And for the surprise of us and nearly everybody, this miserably failed. It was a big failure. And that was a big learning for us. So we started moving on that this has to be coupled with something else. It has to be patient-driven. So doctors need to see the interest of patients in this kind of service. And then we moved on to having a patient portal, which is called Visita.com, where patients can go in and have a look at different doctors with their pictures, their ratings, information about them, their education. And the most important, of course, is the reviews. That patients who visited this doctor before can review this doctor, and others can see this to be able to book this doctor online. And the service would be enabling this patient to book this doctor immediately online, quickly, easily from a mobile app or from a website, and accordingly be able to get to this doctor on time and so on. That's how we transformed the doctor, the relation of the patient with the doctor. The second thing, what we're aiming for is to digitize more and more transactions that are going on the healthcare system. So more to come, like scan bookings, for example, like lab results, storing the patient health records, and so on, of these kind of things.
Thank you. I want to ask you something. I mean, basically, we had a startup in Jordan. It was one of the Oasis 500 startups who aimed to actually do something similar in Jordan, but he was met with a great amount of resistance from the local doctor community. According to him, I'm repeating what he said, it drove him to stop his initiative. What did you find that really made the doctors buy in?
So, what really is driving the doctors is that they are seeing that patients are affected and considering using their services based on online reviews and transactions and getting them to be seen on the internet and so on. This is a major driving force for them. And of course, we also faced a lot of resistance from doctors at the beginning. They were not interested, they don't care, and so on. But the more when they saw the impact of these reviews and the impact of being them present online, then this started to getting them one by one to be pushed and like more excited about the platform to be able to use it. And that's how we were able to grow to have 3,000 doctors and moving on and actually expanding in 2017 into a new country, probably Saudi or United Arab Emirates.
Well, good luck in that.
Let
me move now to Firas. I mean, Firas, basically, we've discussed so far about the startup sector and, more on the informal governmental side. Mm-hmm. However, from your end, I mean, you're now the head of EHS, and EHS is a non-profit company that was established majorly by a government drive, okay, with 3 of the largest governmental stakeholders on your board. Your mandate is basically to improve healthcare using technology. And so far, there's been the investment in spreading the electronic health records platform in the country, okay? And you've covered a good amount of sites now connected in one large network or a couple of large networks, to put it that way. How are you moving to leverage the data that you have available at your disposition and your custody today to actually fulfill the mission of improved healthcare? That is my first question, and I'm going to get to a second question, because I understand you have some 3 million patient records on your hands, right?
Around 3.5 as of today.
Go ahead, please. So how do you plan to use that? What are the initiatives that you are using now to leverage this data?
Okay. Basically, I'm not sure how much the audience know about Hakim. To start with, have anybody heard about Hakim program?
Firas, اتقرب المايك شوي.
Anybody knows more about Hakim program? Or just few? I just want to see some hands, so at least I know where to start.
Well, obviously, it's very popular.
Okay, that's good. That's good enough. All right. So, as Rami said, Hakim program is our vehicle, if you can say, or our flagship for implementing and computerizing the public health sector in Jordan. And this initiative had come into place with the direction of His Majesty King Abdullah II, sincerely looking at how to uplift and assist in making the public health sector in a better position. So basically, as of today, we have a 3.5 million patient record. And those, again, the intention when we started the program, not just putting the tool of Vesta and automating the public health sector in order to increase the efficiency. Our concern is to look at the data, and the data, we have 2 elements or 2 parts that we would like to have as an output. One of them is the clinical, in terms of health outcomes, in order to evaluate more and do more analysis on that factor, to leverage this data for prevention of medicine, for corrective of medicine, for even predictive of medicine down the road. And the other elements is to put more data in front of the decision makers in order to make the decision on the right time at the right place. So basically, as of today, we have developed an advanced tools. These tools, it helps us in order to start evaluating more and more and get more into the data analysis of what we have. We have developed the tool, and currently we're verifying all the data in it, and this is the second version, Rami. The first version was only to target, in a sense, toward the, what we call it, the Ministry of Health reporting requests. And now we're moving into the second version where it's more flexible. It allows us to drag and drop this in a way that's easy to customize and to get the data needed. In addition of having dashboards, and those dashboards, you know, it will help our decision makers to look into it in a way around.
Do you foresee availing these tools to the public, for researchers, for institutions?
Yeah, again, that's where we're right now on top of thinking, you know, about it, because we have received so many queries. Part of it from universities, and part of it again from the private sector, where they're very much interested on this data to do certain analysis. But you know, those again, EHS is the custodial agent of this data. They're managing the data, and the ownership belongs to the Ministry of Health as well as to the Royal Medical Services. So basically, yes, we are, but under the regulations that the Ministry of Health as well as the Royal Medical Services would allow us to do so.
Well, some would argue that the maximum potential can be realized by opening up to the private sector and to patients themselves.
True.
So I will just follow with another question. What about the patient engagement?
Exactly. Now, our target, really, if you look on our roadmap, Rami, we started with the pilot, then we went into the rollout, then we had the health informatics, we moved into, again, what we call it as of today, the interoperability. We'll start thinking about it and what we want to do more to connect the various sectors. Now, patient empowerment is something we look into it because we're very concerned on the connected health. And by means of that, probably we'll start with the personal health record, which is the PHR. It's in the radar right now to think how we're going to do it. We started with certain ideas, you know, here and there. Again, the intention is to connect all the patients with their physicians. So eventually, we will have all the data. Because we want to leverage the big data. We want to have the Internet of Things coming where we could have wearable devices with our patients. So we'll have, again, more and more data. So the data is getting crucial, and it's very important. Everybody in the other world, and all over the world, thinking about it. And I think we as EHS will do on the same manner, because that's the way to go.
You're saying the word data, and I suddenly see Lena smiling. Now, you know, common wisdom says, you know, ladies first, but unfortunately we've deviated significantly of this and kept you للآخر, الفضل للفضيل basically. But it's not al-fadl yet. It's actually still part of the session. Lena, you come from IBM. IBM is IBM. They've got the Watson platform. We've heard from our fellow speakers here about gathering data, you know, Visita, collecting data at the personal level, over 3 million records at the governmental level. We've mentioned about Al-Tibbi and so much data, whether we're talking about patient information, about behavioral stuff, and so on. Now, I know that in IBM, Watson has been probably the big thing in cognitive computing, how computers learn, and some would say that it can even diagnose better than doctors based on the information. So tons of data, strong processing power. What is happening in that field?
So I think we are today at the point of utilizing the data that we've collected over the 100 years. If you look at what we are doing, we are basically taking all the intelligence that we can take from the data. The research says 1% only of all the data collected in the world is being used for generating intelligence. So think of the 99% of all the data that we collect from all the sources that's not being used today. IBM saw this explosion of data coming and put all their bets into this. And I know some people have heard of the world of Watson. Can I see if anyone knows what Watson is? Okay, few. So what is Watson? Watson is really cognitive computing. So we started with the counting systems that counts, then we went into systems that program, like your mobiles, your laptops, and now it's the era of systems that learn. And if you think in a very simple way, what is it, the cognitive computing? It's really like putting a child to school. You teach this child to read, to digest information. The difference is the systems will never forget. It will reach to a capacity where in 1 second, it can read 1 million textbooks. So if you look at this power, at these systems that learn, you can use them to solve the biggest problems in the world. And what IBM did is they put this big investment, it's billions of dollars, in solving complex problems in healthcare. And this is really what we have done in Watson in healthcare. And the first use case of this was the oncology advisor. So we all have been touched by cancer. We all know that this is very difficult. And we all wish we have the best treatment and the best success and the best survival rate. What the systems are doing, it's digesting all the data that are generated from medical records, from textbooks. I mean, if you look at it, we see 8,000 medical journal reports generated every day from around the world. There is no doctor that can read all this data, can read millions of textbooks, digest it to give the right treatment plan for patients. So this is really the bet. The bet is, in any cancer type, how can we train our doctors to be the best doctors they can in their field? How can you bring cancer to survival? How can you use all this data, put it as an augmented to the doctor? So it's not replacing the doctor, it's really augmenting the brain of the doctor. So you can get an advisor sitting next to you, looking at the data, giving you this patient, this is his recommended treatment plan. So we're not replacing your brain, we are just giving you potential of solutions.
So what's the ideal engagement model? I mean, assuming here Firas from EHS wants to come and say, Watsonize us, we want to read all this data, we want something, to make sense. So actually the question is still for Lina Firas, for a moment.
Yes. So the next evolution was, why do we keep this Watson as an IP for IBM? Why do you keep it for yourself? Let's open it up. Let's get everybody working on this platform. So we put it on the cloud, we opened it up. So developers, there's maybe 100,000 developers around the world today using Watson to build solutions for systems. So the answer will be twofold. You can get IBM to help you solve one healthcare problem. You can say oncology, diabetes, and that is something we've developed already. But you want to innovate in Jordan, you want to have something different, you can use all these APIs that are available, build your skill, and create your own solutions and start exporting it to the world. So there's so many ways you can use Watson to improve healthcare in Jordan.
Okay, I still want to follow with you in the field of research. I mean, we're talking about healthcare. William earlier said that, in relation to applications concerning acute care, that's quite difficult because we cannot do a lot of clinical trials, but at the same time we're not doing a lot of research. I mean, we read journals, we read studies, but we're not doing a lot of primary research ourselves. How can Watson, or in that area, how can we use Watson to help us in that area?
So again, Watson is an advisor to you. You can put Watson to transform your education system and get better engineers, better developers. We all heard yesterday the lack of technical engineers that can help you develop and digitize your economy. So this is one area. You can put it become an advisor to your doctors at universities, it can become an advisor to your even teachers at schools. That's one use of it. But the real other use of how can you use our system, a cognitive computing, in transforming an economy or improving the country is really around building a real research capability. So all this data that is digested, that's read by Watson, millions and millions of books, is one entity, or one box, if you want. There are many other things that needs to work for you to have a real research and innovation in Jordan. So it's the talent, you educate, you improve, you empower the talent, you bring the research, you bring the technology, and then you have a base to start, and you create an ecosystem where you bring, we talked about it yesterday, we bring investors, we bring universities, we bring the government, and you create this. I mean, parts of the world spend more than 2% of their GDP on research. If you look at our world, it's 0.0 something. So this is really a big room for improvement.
Do you see any promising starts anywhere in the Middle East?
Yes, I think we have to start. I mean, if we don't start, then all this marketing that we talk about, knowledge-based economy, will not be sustainable.
Firas, you wanted to
Yeah, Rami, just for the audience so they would know. I mean, you could populate lots of data from the EHR. However, again, there is structured and unstructured. The beauty about Watson or artificial intelligence, it's not just only, it's a search engine like Google or etc. It learns, it educates itself, so you could populate structured and unstructured data, and you know how much it's really difficult to analyze in a regular, traditional way.
Okay. I would like to open, I would like to open the floor for discussions if any of the audiences here has any questions. So do we have anybody with the mics? Or is that the only mic that I have to pass over to people? Well, you have a question.
Thank you. My question is, for those of you who are engaging with data, for those of you who are engaging directly with customers, how do you maintain that engagement when people are not visiting the doctor? Whether it's collecting lifestyle information for Watson or for EHS, or when they're not coming to the pharmacy, how do you build that connection so that they have a deeper attachment to what you're offering?
Are you passing this question to any specific person or?
To anyone who wants to step in.
Thank you. So, Nabid started with the idea of prescriptive content, tailor-made content. This is actually the pillar the company was founded on. The idea is to enable health practitioners to prescribe to you content just like they do prescribe medicine. And it will be delivered to you at home or via email or text by patient portal. Once you log in, you have your specific dedicated content that is based on the diagnosis you were given. So a lot of our content, we do a lot of artificial intelligence to really make sure we deliver this content to you aimed directly at your diagnosis. So we are enabling all of the potential partners, whether it's doctors or healthcare practitioner. However, it is based on an input that a doctor has to put in, and it is prescribed just by one click of a button. This is, so far, we are making our preventive and educational content on chronic disease available on a mass scale anywhere. But meanwhile, we're giving those tools. And just to get back, so probably it's not so much bypassing the doctor. I think a lot of the younger doctors are more willing to play in today's digital arena. But a lot of the older doctors, they're just basically becoming an obstacle in this innovation. But yeah, to answer you, this is basically at least the tools we are using really is whether it's a direct approach, massive education prevention capabilities to governmental, to clinical, corporate, and making it prescriptive content from a health practitioner perspective.
I hope that answered you, but Ahmed, you want to comment as
well? So another point. So for example, on our side, we are tracking the visits that the patients are making to what type of doctors based on their specialty and so on. And we're able to engage the patient post doing these visits, like giving him reminders about that you have to go for the consultation, or asking him some simple surveys to help us guide him maybe through post visiting the doctor with instructions, medical guides, and so on.
Okay, I have a question, and I'll come to your question in a minute. William, what is the next best thing? Where is the biggest opportunity in healthcare IT for aspiring entrepreneurs?
Globally or in MENA?
Well, for the MENA region, obviously.
Sure. Okay, so for the MENA region, the biggest opportunity that I see is in mobile health or mHealth. I mean, we're in a region where the mobile and internet penetration rates are among the highest in the world, and we're also in a region where, like you mentioned, the non-communicable diseases, the heart disease, diabetes, hypertension are also amongst the highest in the world. And these are diseases that require daily therapeutic treatments, lifestyle changes. This is human behavior. We're talking about the ability to nudge people in a certain direction. What digital device do you carry with you all the time? Your cell phone. So if we can find some way to use the phone to convey information and lifestyle changes to people in a way that's monetizable, and also partners with doctors and providers, I think this is a massive opportunity, and startups are capitalizing on this.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take a couple of questions, one from the gentleman and then from the lady there, and we'll answer them at the same time. The mic isn't working. إذا بتساعدوا لو سمحت.
Okay. My name is Haider. This whole forum is about digitizing the economy, and you have been talking about how technology and IT in particular can basically optimize the relationship between the data and the patient and the doctor and so on. This is all wonderful. Let me take another angle, which is related to the economy and digitizing the economy. The biggest nightmare for governments when it comes to healthcare is the bill, is the huge bill. Jordan, for example, as well as many Arab countries and other countries of the world, their ultimate goal is to reach full coverage of all citizens. In fact, a lot of analysis indicate that if we do the IT right in the health sector, not only we will reach this full coverage, but also the bill will be lower if we do it right. Mm-hmm. So I really would like some of the great panelists here to enlighten us a little bit about what innovative solutions we can introduce in order to service the ministers of finance and mm-hmm. ministers of health.
Well, thank you for the question. I'll take another question and then we'll answer them and then we'll pass on to that. So, is the lady behind, please.
Good morning. We are two and we have two questions. My name is Amal Daraghi Masri. I am the editor-in-chief of Middle East Business Magazine, and we're happy to be one of the media sponsors here. My question is very brief and small. IT technology is made to serve human beings and advance their lives, and we know that there are errors and there are hackers, that cybersecurity is becoming a main issue these days. How do you think that you can protect all of these data that can influence people's lives? You can maybe manage if your credit card is stolen with $1,000, but you cannot manage if your information has been tweaked or changed and you take a wrong pill. So how can we make sure that this doesn't happen? Can I pass it to my neighbor?
You may, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Hanan Arouri, the founder of YallaIjaza.com, which is a traveling platform, nothing to do with health.
YallaIjaza.com?
Yes. That's nice. So it's not.
This is not a promotion of the website.
It has to do with the mental health and psychological health. So, but I was engaged also in my previous work. I was engaged in the 2009 with the e-health solutions, where I used to work in my company, and I got exposed to many of international potential solutions. But my question is to do with the region, the Arabic, in our region. We have three providers of health care today. We have the private sector, we have the public sector, and we have what we call the NGOs and the charity sectors. These are the three main health providers, and I don't know what can be done to to get all these people providing or getting the same data or providing the same data or to engage them in such a huge initiative. So this is, I think, that might be a challenge to get all these players and actors to be engaged in such a huge program. Second question has to do with the regulatory, building on Amal concern, with the regulatory part, because this is it should be a very private information, has to do with the privacy of patients, and to make sure that this information has not been disseminated or been used or manipulated by other resources or by the things that can maybe affect people's life or quality of life. Thank you.
Well, so pretty much we've got 3 questions here. 2 are pretty much repeated. So innovative ways to help governments deliver more inclusive coverage at lower costs, and the security element, as well as how to get the various parties offering healthcare services to work together. So who'd like to talk about the innovative?
You can go first.
Okay, I'll pass you the security in a little bit, because that's a very big issue for you, Firas. So let's talk about the innovative ways.
So actually, I'd like to answer the first and second question briefly. For the first question about finance, we're seeing startups globally that are offering more personalized packages for insurance. There's a company called Oscar in the US that's doing this, and what you enable people to do then is to get the right payment method for the treatments that they need. Ultimately, this means that governments and payers are going to have to pay out less only for the things that actually are appropriate for the individuals that they cover. The other side to this is obviously the preventative medicine. The fewer people who get sick and need treatment, the lower the bill is going to be. So I would encourage investment in that space. To the question about cybersecurity, I don't have the answer to how we will secure all this data, but I will say it's an incredibly important question. And from the data that I've seen, I could show you the same chart of exponential growth in funding and deals and dollars to startups in cybersecurity and healthcare over time, simply because this is the next phase. I mean, as we have more connected devices and we transmit more of our personal data, including healthcare, this is the next frontier. So I would add that this is a massive opportunity as well for startups. That's all.
Thank you. I'm going to pass the mic to Firas, actually.
Okay.
Ahmed. I mean, 2 things. Security. How do you get the public, the private, and the NGO, I mean, in your case, even the public with the public itself, I mean, to talk to each other and offer this consolidated access to data?
Okay. So, in return to your question regarding the security of the data, I assure you, I mean, that's a very important question. And this is why when we started Hakim program, we have looked into so many solutions, and we looked at something that's affordable for Jordan and has a reputation, and that was Vista. Vista being developed in the United States for supporting the Veterans Affairs hospitals, and it's the largest network in the US. This solution, it's an open source, it's a HIPAA compliance, and it has all the security measures that's needed. The second thing, and this is very important for everybody to know, proper EHR, usually when a physician do any orders or put any orders, they usually have, or they must have, what we call it e-signature. And the e-signature, that's a stamp. So when a physician does anything, automatically it stamps, and there is no way you could hash it. It's going to appear, this doctor from this site at this time has requested so and so. So that's an assurance that not anybody can, just take a piece of your record in a way or another. Anything, there is an audit trail on the system, that audit trail on the background, all the actions that's been taken or it's been done on the record. On the other hand, also, we have done something additional, that we have a mirrored databases. So in different locations. So if something happened in one database, automatically we fail over to the second one. So education is needed definitely on the cybersecurity issues, as we see it rising on the other part of the world. But I assure you, I mean, with the education, with the preventions, and again, having a security department within an organization like EHS is something what we have, and we're up to date in that matter.
Thank you, Firas. I think there was Ahmed and Lina, both of you. As if I saw gestures, you wanted to comment, or you're fine?
Yes, very quick. On the security one. Then we can talk about the other points. So on security, I mean, just a very quick. You know that the most expensive data element on any person is his medical record. It's actually, it has a price. It's more than $1,000. It can go up to 20 depending on who you are. So this is how expensive it is and how we should take security so serious. Now, watch a space that's called blockchain. I don't know if you've heard of blockchain, but this is really a systems that cannot be hacked, that is now put in government, that is starting pilots to build electronic health records across the US. And this is really where the things are going, because security is very, very important in trading medical records. So that's really what I wanted to comment on.
Thank you.
Yeah, really quick,
briefly.
Getting back to the gentleman on the government spending cuts. Two things from our experience. There are around 30% of shopping for different doctors in the same specialty. So patients would go to multiple doctors on the same topic. And that's one way of cutting some cost of these kind of spending. The second is overprescribing. That doctors would overprescribe several medications that are not needed, and IT systems can detect that and stop that if these are well managed on a medical record system. These are just 2 points from our experience.
Actually, we have a question from there, and then we'll take it from you. But just, I mean, I'll allow myself, though I'm a moderator, to give an opinion in the matter of getting the public sector, the private sector, and the NGOs to work together. This is not so much a technology challenge, it's a politics challenge and regulation challenge. And there is no easy answer to this. It really is a contextual question, depending on the country, the magnitude of the country, the power of the central government over all the various bodies that operate in any certain country. I mean, allow me to introduce, I mean, I know that you guys are working on trying to get some work in that field, because
exactly.
you're serving the Ministry of Health and the Royal Medical Services, which are technically...
As well as the private. Now we have, I mean, apparently there is lots of interest, and our sister company, EHSI, they're looking into that, because, I mean, the private sector, they're showing very much interest in getting Hakim program to the private. And that's also is very important for us, because we would like to keep the record as a unified record, one single record for our patients in the future. So again, this is something that EHSI currently looking into it to try to formulate some sort of standardization approach with the private sector and see how we could move on that direction.
Excellent. Now I'm aware of the time limitation, so we're going to take a couple of questions, maybe more, but very succinct, brief questions, brief answers from us. So, sir, you have the mic?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. My question is to Madame Lina Shadid. I would like, as a legal person, I would like to ask what is the legal responsibility relation between your system and the doctor, and between the doctor and the patient in case of any wrong diagnostic for a patient? Thank you.
We'll take the second question and then pass to the answers. The gentleman بعد إذنك الأخ الكريم هنا.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Ali Tamimi. My question is about cloud. I didn't hear much about any cloud dimension to whatever we're talking about, considering that we have replicable business models in all hospitals, whether private or public sector, especially for Firas, probably EHS can play a pivotal role in this. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Lina,
so
the answer about the relationship.
Legal, yes. So you've asked me about what's the responsibility of the system versus the doctor. And if you remember, what I said is Watson is augmenting your intelligence. It's not replacing the doctor. So the doctor will have a recommended treatment plan for certain disease. But at the end, the treatment plan will come as a recommended solution. And what the doctor will do is will select the best option. So they will still take the decision. Now, the systems are trained, so they are medical certified, and they will give you recommendations, but they will not take the responsibility. It's at the end, you.
Firas.
Currently, I'm not sure if you're familiar, we're pushing our database from a single place, okay? And we are leveraging the NBN network, all right? So you could consider us, in a way, we're close to being a private cloud, in a sense, all right? Now, going to the idea of public cloud definitely is not our interest, and I know for a fact lots of companies in the US, they're starting to think about going into the public cloud, but in a private approach, you know. Some of them like Epic, etc. They're still on the early stage. And for us, it is something that we'd like to see and wait. We're definitely in the process of looking into different approaches as of today, because our data is getting bigger and bigger, and we want really to make different approaches. But all of that needs to be moved in a very solid foot, you know, because of the liability and the size of the data.
Adnan, you have a final word?
Yeah, I just would like to share something that I think it's a bit interesting, thinking out of the box. Amazon.com, basically they can now predict not only at a state level or even a county level, almost on a blockchain, what will be the order behavior for the next coming week or two. So they can actually prepare the logistics and the stock arrangements. So to me, it sounds like Amazon can be actually a perfect candidate looking at the future to have a better use of the big data and actually convert it into a prevention. So just to kind of answer back on the question for how to reduce the cost, I believe it is prevention, prevention, prevention. And probably with Hakim's initiative, you should be able to actually understand the root causes and which areas and where you can actually start build your prevention behavior around the big data that is coming in. I mean, at the early roots, basically.
Good. Well, I mean, I see one hand, and I'm going to look there. Do we have time for one more question, or? Okay, one last question to the lady at the back, and then we'll wrap it up after this. So, today you're gonna, it's a good workout for you today.
Hi, thank you. I'm Dana Balut with Wamdan. Nice to see you, Will. I wanted to ask, I was at a conference last week in Beirut, the BDL, and one of the speakers had said that a doctor can predict cancer with a 50% accuracy, and a robot could predict it in 99%. And I wanted to ask you about the reactions that you're getting with doctors. Is that if a robot can now stitch with more accuracy than an actual human, or if they can predict diseases with a higher accuracy than doctors, how are we then adapting the future of even medical school, of the doctor's role? I know you said it's an assistant, but if an advisor is better at predicting diseases than an actual human, what's the future that we're seeing in the role of doctors?
Thank you. Very interesting question. Lena?
So I was thinking about it because many doctors, when you explain what artificial intelligence can bring to them, this is exactly the reaction. So why do you need us? And the reality is, you're training the system by your best doctors in town. So who's the best cardiologist in Jordan? You train the physician, you train the system so they can perform to the same standards of your best doctor. And you give it to all your medical students, you give it to all your startup doctors, and this is how you improve, because they learn and the system learn from the best doctors that are there in each country. And so it's not replacing doctors, it's augmenting the doctors. And once you explain the power of it, once you explain how much data they can bring and how much support they will give to the physician, they change completely, 180%.
I want to say a word and then conclude basically the session. And I want to draw on the experience of Al-Tibbi. Al-Tibbi started as a portal, and Jalil Al-Labadi, who started that portal at the beginning of it, had no idea of how the public will receive his information. Today, I think it is fair to say that all of us actually, in one way or another, rely on medical information online before we actually go to the doctor directly. Many of us are more involved than others in reading some research and in taking that extra step to educate ourselves. What started as an adventure on one hand today has over or just under 100 million hits per year. Now that speaks loads and volumes about the opportunity that lurks in the healthcare IT field between huge systems that have tons of data like the Hakim system, or the education that is being targeted by startups, or the doctor community on the private sector like Visita and so on. The opportunity is massive. Today there are challenges in the region. They are exemplified in the absence of some very deep expertise, the lack of funding in a very proactive way, but generally there is so much that can be gained, and because we are behind in many ways from the rest of the world in those applications and the leverage of this technology, there is so much to be gained, and this is an inspirer for all of you, I hope, who are considering or entertaining the idea of starting up something in the healthcare IT field. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put a round of applause for our distinguished panel. Thank you, Lina, Firas, Ahmed, William, and Adnan for being with us today.
And thank you, naturally, our moderator as well, Rami Adwan, for doing a great job as a moderator. Thank you very much.